Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang channel. Thanks for joining me once again. Today, I am going to share my review of Dungeons and Dragons Bigby Presents Glory of the Giants from Wizards of the Coast. And stay tuned because I'm going to reveal the winner of my copy of the alternate art edition of the book. So stay tuned for that. Dungeons and Dragons Bigby Presents Glory of the Giants is written by James Wyatt, Mackenzie Diarmas, Dan Dillon, Ben Petrosor, and Jason Tondro. The 192-page hardcover arrives in stores tomorrow, August 15th, carrying an MSRP of $59.95. You can get the physical and digital bundle for that very same price right now over at D&D Beyond. So keep that in mind as well. All that said, let's swing on over to the other camera because here I've got Glory of the Giants. Do want to mention the fine folks over at Wizards of the Coast were kind enough to provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this review with you. These days, it's important that you know that. We're not going to look at each and every page of Glory of the Giants either, but I do want to give you a very good feel for what's in this book. I already did a first look video. You might want to go back to that to get a little deeper dive into what you're going to find in the book itself. So let's jump on in. So we've got our credits and we've got quite a few illustrators here. And yes, there was some AI modified artwork that is included in this book. Wizards of the Coast kind of lost their mind over it. And from my understanding, as far as the digital version of Glory of the Giants, that artwork is going to be removed and replaced as soon as the new artwork is ready. So I'm not going to call out the illustrator and take him out to the woodshed because they've already taken a lot of heat online. So we have essentially a source book all about giants, and it's told from the point of view in some portions of the book from two different characters. One is Bigby, who is now a gnome. I thought they were human originally, but now they're a gnome because I guess they got squashed by a giant and they were reincarnated. They were not resurrected. They were reincarnated as a gnome. So now they're a gnome. We also have a daughter, a demi-goddess. She is a giant daughter of the god of giants, Amon, and that is Dian Castra. So we will hear from both of them throughout the book. So we're going to start off. We get some player character options. And I have to be very honest. Wizards of the Coast has gotten into this rather bad habit of kind of building up these player character options in some of these releases as, wow, they're a big deal. And then, of course, we have some content creators out there who run channels that are truly dependent on Dungeons and Dragons for their survival. And they kind of build up these player character options as if there's some, huge deal. And then, unfortunately, in execution, not so much. So we do have one new subclass. We've got a couple of new backgrounds. They are interesting. I think they're pretty cool. But still, they're not really that big a deal. So we do have a new subclass for the Barbarian, which is Path of the Giants. And then we've got a couple of new backgrounds. Personally, I like the Giant Foundling background the best because it's essentially your character is not a giant, but you were raised by giants. And you tend to be a bit larger than other members of your species, and you have some additional feats that are available to you that are pretty cool. I was kind of surprised because there's a big deal made about giant magic leading up to the release of Glory of the Giants. I was kind of surprised that we don't see any sort of magic user subclass that's tied in. But once again, the player character options are interesting. They're just not overwhelming. And this is being presented as a book which is both player and dungeon master facing. I gotta disagree because really a great majority of the content in Glory of the Giants is aimed at dungeon masters, not at the players. But of course, the powers that be over at Wizards of the Coast understand that books that have player options tend to sell very well. So, unfortunately, once again, I said this is a habit that Wizards of the Coast has gotten into over the past few years, and I got to be honest, I don't like it. I don't like it. If they want to present player character options, that's great, but come on, do more than 10 pages. It's not even 10 pages, the reality of it. Then we get into a lot of background about giants themselves. And as someone who left D&D back during the midst of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons and really didn't get back on board until just before the release of 5th edition, I found this to be very interesting. It discusses the religions of giants, the fractured society that giants have, the ordning. Um, it does kind of start getting into aspects of giants where I know the whole premise nowadays with Dungeons and Dragons is no species is inherently evil. In my opinion, giants should almost always be evil. That a good giant or a neutral giant should be few and far between. But then again, that's just me. Now, this section here, which is about giant adventures, I found to be very, very useful because it's discussing how to create encounters, utilizing giants, focused on giants. We get a lot of tables, a lot of random tables for dungeon masters to utilize to kind of get those creative juices going or to kind of point them in the right direction as far as getting adventures and campaigns themselves off the ground with giants as the focus. So definitely like that quite a lot. Then we also have a section with giant enclaves. So I like this as well because it's something that a dungeon master can utilize various different locations. They are keyed as well. And to really give a good jumping off point, or maybe even a location where the finale, the climax of an adventure is going to take place, or even various locations that you might want to utilize. Now, I should point out that this book is really aimed at dungeon masters who homebrew adventures. If you are somebody who only runs published adventures, then this may not necessarily be as useful to you as it is for a dungeon master who likes concoct their own tales. Now, as a dungeon master, there is tons and tons of useful information in this book. I especially do like the Dyson's logo maps that we get. They're not overwhelming. They're really well detailed without becoming just too busy and too cluttered. Really, really nice work from Dyson's logos. So definitely like that quite a bit. Then we get into a section with giant treasures. It's only a few pages. There's some pretty interesting items in here. There are some black powder weapons, which, strangely enough, in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, I like having firearms. I think it fits the setting really nicely, especially since they're early era black powder. They're single shot take you forever to reload. That's the same case here, but for some strange reason, I'm just not a fan of firearms in Dungeons and Dragons. There we go. The Thunderbuss, which does obviously thunder damage, right? Electrical damage. So we've got that. Then we get into a bestiary. There are 71, if I remember correctly, with my count, stat blocks in the bestiary. And we've got some really interesting creatures in here. There are some that are sort of head scratchers. There's the fire giant of evil fire, which I know a commenter on my first look video were sort of like, what? It's kind of like, ah, yes, it's the black dragon of evil blackness. It's like, okay. But then we have some cool stuff too. So I especially like the bag jelly, which is a jelly that lives in a giant's bag. And there is discussion about what giants keep in their bags. And it kind of like grows out of like rotted food. And some giants try to make sure that they clean their bags so that they don't have any residual crap in there that's going to create a bag jelly. But then other giants leave that jelly in their bag to help deter thieves. We get dinosaurs. So we don't just have giants in the bestiary, we have large scale creatures as well. And then we also have offshoots of the giants. Here's the frost giant of evil water. That's another kind of oddball term. We go from challenge rating 1 all the way up through 27, if I remember correctly. And once again, for the most part, I think the creatures in the bestiary are pretty interesting and could be very, very useful as well. So, all in all, I honestly do find Glory of the Giants to be a pretty good book. Yes, of course, as I mentioned previously, I have an issue with the player character options really being played up as being something that's really substantial in this book, and it's something we hear a lot from Wizards of the Coast with these releases. And then it turns out, well, yeah, it's 5 pages, player options. So that's unfortunate. But the rest of the book itself, all the information about the giants, their society, advice for dungeon masters on how to role play giants, as well as creating adventures and campaigns which are focused on giants, I think is really, really well done. But I also have to point out the pricing of this book seems way out of whack. And yes, I do understand we have seen price increases across every aspect of our hobby. So we've seen it in role playing games, we see it in board games, other tabletop games, miniatures, so on and so forth. But I think this is a pretty big jump for D&D at 192 pages to jump all the way up to just about $60, I think is pretty pricey. I will point out, though, that some online retailers out there, including a rather large online retailer, is offering this book at a substantial discount, and most other online stores are discounting this as well. Got to point out artwork throughout, I really, really like. There aren't any real clunkers in here. There's no silly artwork. There isn't anything that's too cartoonish in style either. So, all in all, I was very pleasantly surprised by Glory of the Giants. I really, really was. Now, before I provide my final thoughts and give this a review score, I do want to mention the winner of my copy of the alternate art edition of Glory of the Giants. And the contest was really easy. You just had to be a subscriber. You had to like the video for my first look video. And you had to share what's your favorite giant. That's it. Easy peasy. And the winner is Kim Possible. Yes, I wasn't expecting a cartoon character to win this book, but yes, Kim Possible is the winner. So what I need you to do is email Jeff McAleer at The Gaming Gang from your Gmail account that is associated with your YouTube account, and I will get your shipping address and get this out to you ASAP. All right, let's swing on over to the other camera so I can provide some final thoughts as well as my review score. So as I pointed out, I was pleasantly surprised by Glory of the Giants. This is a pretty well done book. I know, shocking, right? Because I'm usually the one who's like, oh, you know, I was really hoping that this D&D book would be at least good. And they tend to be fairly average. And there are some that I don't like too much. But I thought this is very, very well produced. There's a lot of good content in here. Love the artwork throughout. Keep in mind, as someone who left D&D in the heyday of advanced D&D and didn't come back until just before 5th edition arrived, a lot of this information is new to me, but the Giant Society info might be old hat for many of you out there already. So I don't know how big a deal that will be for you. The bestiary is really well done. Yeah, there are some oddball entries. It's not as if you have to use everything in it. As a player-facing book, I got to be honest, I don't really see too many Dungeons and Dragons players out there needing to run out and pick up Glory of the Giants. I really don't, because there's so little actually aimed at the players, even though all of the giant lore is supposed to be player and dungeon master facing. Most players I know, they want to play. They don't necessarily want to read, dozens upon dozens of pages of giant lore. They want the dungeon master to introduce them to some of that information. So really, I find this to be a dungeon master facing book. If your DM picks it up, yes, then the players, of course, can use those player options, the one new subclass and those 2 new backgrounds. So all in all, once again, I'm pleasantly surprised by Glory of the Giants. Do have to ding it because of the player character options really aren't as extensive as they could have been, or as they're kind of being presented. And I got to say, this is pretty high priced for 192 page hardcover. So I am dinging the book for those 2 things. So on a scale of 0 to 10, I give Dungeons and Dragons Bigby Presents Glory of the Giants a solid recommendation. I give it an 8 out of 10. I think for D&D groups, your dungeon master should pick it up if they're very interested in giant-centric adventures. All right, that is it for this time out. If you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, ding that bell, because it'll not only let you know when I upload videos such as this review, it'll also let you know when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Central, right here on YouTube. And of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more that you won't find here on the YouTube channel. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thanks for taking time out to watch this review. And until I see you next time, here's hoping each and every one of you gets to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.